I would say some of the things that attract me to English cars are some of the specific parts that we use, which would include electricals and SU carburetors. 3 years ago at my house, we had a tech session where Dr. Tony and Mike and some other people came over and helped replace the carburetors on my TR4A. This was an SU H6, which had the leaky throttle shafts, and also the piston bore was leaking. So I was always putting ATF up here, and we replaced them with HS6s that Ed had bought in England. And it took a lot longer than we thought, because there are, of course, a lot of problems with the carburetors that were supposed to be rebuilt and were not rebuilt correctly. But I would be happy to tell you that in 3 years, as we know, French for carburetor means do not touch or do not adjust. Since we put the carbs on my car, I have not adjusted them one bit, and the car runs wonderfully. I also brought some other things. Now, of course, we love tools, those of us that fix the cars. I mean, even more wonderful is the specific SU carburetor toolkit, which can be more quaint than this. And I bought this off of a coworker who had MGs and Triumphs back in the day, and he sold this to me. And it's Unison. You can still get these, but mine is a real vintage 1960s era Unison, which is used for balancing carburetors and making sure that they're intaking the correct amount of air. We used all these tools when we did adjust my carbs, and they've sat, have not been used since. And then I also brought the 2 books I have, SU Carburetor Tuning Tips and Technique, which I bought before the session, and it's available to be borrowed. And this, which I stole off a friend of mine who really isn't into English cars, he'd rather be fishing. Zenith Stromberg CD carburetors, which I think we have a couple of examples of these here tonight. I have not read through this book because I prefer SUs.
Hi, my name is Mark Bolwitz.
I'm Mark.
Hi. And I used to own a TR6.
All right. That's all that's left.
What this is the mystery 3rd carburetor. Not, by the way, this is a 1.75 or 1 3/4 inch carburetor. Not the pithy little 1.5 inch carburetor this man over here has. Now this carburetor is a Zenith Stromberg, and this is a very special carburetor. This was the last thing I got out of Brian Shaw when I stopped working at Power Grid. And I said to Brian, I bought, this is 10 or 11 years ago, I bought a triple carb setup for my TR6 from Richard Good at a Carlisle show. And I said, Brian, I need a 3rd carb. And he says, here. And he gives me this. So, at the time, I was really interested in doing triple carbs with the Zenith Strombergs until I read an article in the TR Register magazine that talked about a ZF carburetor, which was a bottom float ball carburetor for SU, which was a beautiful, very pretty setup in a triple setup package. That is now the property of the guy that does new frames, Radco, who bought it at the auction because I was selling the TR6, or sold it, and I had the triple setup. So he bought that at the auction, I made a nice pretty penny on it. But the important part is, if anybody is interested in what is the difference between a gross jet and a regular jet, I have both. All right? So, this is the mystery 3rd carburetor that never got built. This is a standard jet, which turns the float on and off, so it prevents the fuel from rising too high in the float chamber. And this is the gross jet, which is like a little ballpoint pen. So that's my show and tell. Thank you very much. Medical examinations will be happening in 20 minutes. My next?
You got one there?
Yeah, I got it.
He's got another iPod.
That doesn't count.
No points. You gotta be really quiet.
It's going to turn up great on the video.
The Weber carburetors on the Super 7, because as you saw it Saturday, it's running now.
Yeah. Sure. Oh, yeah.
Whatever.
You can smell it. Here it is. Look, see? Here it pops.
Where's the try?
Maybe just give us a link.
Somebody with a real fork, get up here.
Oh, that was it?
Mark lost the jet already.
I'm glad you took off the gloves. I'm Bob Hunter.
Behind you.
I'm a client alcoholic. I haven't touched Danagino in 4 years, so I guess that's safe. This is a Solex carburetor off a Triumph 948cc Herald. And this is about the only part that's probably still operable in a car that I own. So,
Hello, I'm Ed Alcott, and
Hi, Ed.
I don't have a Triumph carburetor with me. I have a, because it's all attached to my car. But I have a carburetor that came off of, or should pull on rather, a Indian outboard motor. Indian motorcycle company in the 30s ventured into making outboard motors. So anyway, that's what this is, and what I had to do, I had to make a manifold to mount this on the outboard motor. So I took 2 1/4-inch plates and bored them out, and then I made this little manifold. But this is not the manifold that is on the car, or rather the outboard motor. This one's one I found later. This is cast, and this is quite unique carburetor. If you notice, there's an air intake. Well, actually, this faces forward. What happens if the water splashes onto your motor, you won't be sucking water into the carburetor, but it's facing backwards. Okay, that's the hard way. That's about it.
Ed, is that a needle and a piston like the ones that we looked at before, or is this
This has a butterfly.
So it's a sort of an American style?
Yes, this is made by the Philipson carburetor company.
This is another Zenith carburetor like Mark had. Only the uniqueness about this is it's clean. I don't need gloves.
Well, it's chips.
It's never seen a drop of rain.
It has been clear coated. In all seriousness, this has a Volvo style fuel bulb cover, which is kind of interesting. It's a little different. Volvo also used SU whenever they knew it. But interestingly, what do you suppose is the most overlooked seals when a person does a rebuild on a Zenith carburetor?
Throttle shafts.
The piston damper, the seal that keeps the oil from the reservoir. Can you show that to us? I wish I could, but if you take the cap off, I realize that's right, Jay. I don't have the damper. I don't have the piston damper. Anyway, moving on to another little trivia like Mark showed with the gross jets. This is a standard jet for a Stromberg carburetor. It's 100 in diameter. This is a standard needle for most TR6s and TR250s, B1AF. If you modify your motor, and Steve knows this, let us know that years ago I found out that from Joe Curto up in Massachusetts or Connecticut, he's the carburetor guru, a Jaguar, early Jaguar Series E B1E needles have a 15% narrower shaft at full power, which gives you 15% theoretically more fuel, which gives you more power. So if anyone is having some stumbling blocks or whatever on their lead-on motor, B1E needles are the way to go.
You're saying that size matters?
Size does matter.
Smaller.
Kind of in the reverse.
Everybody seems to think they know what this carburetor is, right? Well, actually, as everybody else knows, the Chinese have bought the name MG. This is made in China. This is not an SU. This is a WU, a Wu. Now, the Wu carburetor is made of the cheapest materials possible. If you look in here, you can see that the piston is made out of compressed paper. Guaranteed to work 1 block. The Chinese also have a 1-month guarantee, as long as you don't run the car. Actually, it's often at 72 mg.
Or you can hear it. I guess we go.
Anybody else got something?
This is a real carburetor. Let's have a look. I don't know whether to hold this down and do a Shakespearean soliloquy. Alas, poor Stromberg, I knew you well. But this is one that has not been driven in about 10 years. But it served as a wake-up call to a recently acquired GT6 put on notice that it's going to be woken up and put back on the road in due course. So I tore this right out of its heart. And hopefully we'll get it back on the road. And the next time you see this, my top is taller. It'll look better than that. Yeah, that's a little bigger.
It's bigger size.
Mine's longer. Yeah. Wow, I had no idea we were going to put our carbs on the block. So yeah, this is next time you see this, you'll be able to read it. Yeah.
Mike.
I have a quiz. Professor Mike.
There it is.
Okay, so you know this comes from the SU style carburetor, and as the piston raises, it allows more air in, and the needle comes out and allows more gas in, and so it's called a variable Venturi variable choke carburetor. Now Mark said he uses APF in the damper. I have heard all sorts of things from STP to nothing.
Marble mystery.
So my question for the group tonight is, if you leave the oil out so the piston can rise faster, how does that improve the performance?
It doesn't.
It doesn't. It flutters because
The oil is in there.
It rises, the vacuum increases, the system
close. We're on the right track. Oil's the damper. Oil's the damper. It slows the rise.
Right.
With
But
no
it also slows the fall. Yes.
on acceleration, it rises too fast. The air gets there too quickly. The gas is more dense and the gas lags. So it runs extremely lean on acceleration because it rises so fast. Racers may get away with running no oil because they're wide open pretty much all the time. For the rest of us, we need to slow the rise, usually by using the same oil we're using in the motor. So the gas can keep pace with the air and give you a rich enough mixture. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything down there? Any final carburetor words from anybody?
But there's a lot of discussion about gross jets versus conventional jets. Mr. Schlarf is very much against gross jets. I don't know, I've had mixed experience with them.
I've had bad experience.
And I also had a bad experience that not all gross jets have the right threads on them for the carburetors. I had a bunch that came with the wrong threads, and I tried to put them in. I realized something was wrong, so I sent them back to Jim Knight, British Racing Green. He said, "Oh yeah, they're definitely the wrong threads." So.
My gut instinct about gross jets is higher pressure, they work better. The low pressure, 4 psi, rear running, they kind of flutter in the middle, and then you get flooded.
Well, you also have the dirt issues. I mean, if you have any contamination in your fuel and it gets into that little ball, gets stuck in there, of course you're faced with the same problems with the regular jets. So, I don't know. I'm not sure it's worth the money. And, if you have a brand new set of conventional jets, they're probably just as good as anything you're going to use.
Anybody else have anything to add to this?
There's also, one other thing I want to add, there's a lot of controversy about whether the Zenith Strombergs or SUs are the better carburetors. Now, you have to ask yourself, in an SU, what makes the piston go up? It's vacuum, right? And the vacuum, the amount that goes up is determined by the force of the vacuum upward. And of course, as these pistons go up and down, the clearances around the outside of the piston and the chamber is changing over time. But on a Stromberg, you don't have that problem because Strombergs come with a diaphragm. So I always felt that the Stromberg, early Strombergs without any of the emission controls on them, with the diaphragm, is engineered as a superior carburetor, just because of that fact that they don't have the wear factor that the SUs have. So I like the late TR4, TR4A Strombergs that don't have any stuff on them. They're just a straight diaphragm operated carburetor. And, they're a low profile carburetor too, which for those of you doing triple carbs on say a GT6, it's the only ones that will fit under the hood. So if you can lay your hands on those late TR4 Stromberg carbs, they're a nice thing to hang on to.
On the other hand, sir,
Yes, sir.
the designer of those diaphragms hadn't counted on E15, whatever the hell they're selling now. You know, the alcohol and the diaphragms.
Yeah, that is an issue.
May not be a good long-term fit.
Well, maybe the new diaphragms are designed to handle the alcohol. Maybe.
Maybe not.
Diaphragm splits, you know.
I would interject that those diaphragms, 2 of those are good to have in your spare tools kit in the car, especially when you go along.
And also, whereas the SU without a diaphragm, if the diaphragm fails on a Zenith, it's a problem. If the diaphragm doesn't exist on an SU, it's not a problem.
Right, it's constantly failing.